What's going on, you guys? Thomas Duke Fishing here. It's cold. It's freezing. The lakes around me are frozen, unfortunately. But I do want to talk about February. The month of February is an interesting month for fishing. A lot of the bait fish, some of them are dying off. The shad, your herring, some of your bluegill even. And I want to talk to you guys about my top 5 baits. Maybe I'll give you a sixth one. Maybe. It's a secret weapon that I have, and I love it. But we're going to talk about February's top 5 baits. So without further ado, let's jump right into this. I'm just kidding. We have our verse of the day, which is Mark 13:33, which says, "Take heed, watch and pray, for you know not when the time is." And that, if you don't understand the context, he's talking about you don't know when God's gonna return and reign forever. So, without further ado, let's get into the top 5 baits of February. Number 1, it's a given. It's cold. Maybe, man. I should have chose the ones without treble hooks. Is this? This is a 6 Sense 100 6DX, I think. Yeah, that sounds right. And I fish this in a zip pause. So this bait's either gonna sit like this and slowly start to sink, or it's gonna sit like this and it's slowly gonna start to raise. And for some reason, that small switch of action just drives those fish insane. And it's cold. They don't want a small meal. They want something like this. Now, I say that to say this. If you see me fishing this bait in the wintertime, as we transition, you will also see me fish this. This is a smaller version of a jerkbait. Now, those fish are going to be more active, as we get closer to the spawn. And if you're up towards, Pennsylvania, Jersey, New York, Maine, up there, it's freezing. And these work really all across the board here in the fishing world. But the transition from the faster moving, because these are just going to zip around, and the transition from this to this is just crazy. I have caught so many amazing fish on a jerkbait, specifically that jerkbait, and it's just, I fish it year round. But if they're finicky, I'll fish it slow. But you can really rip those little ones around. Maybe if your water's clear, you might get away with something like a shad kind of pattern with a hollow foil. Maybe not. They're finicky. But moving on to the next one, because I don't want this video to be super long. My next favorite jig is this. This jig, I gave it away. My next favorite is a jig. And I don't like throwing this with a craw. And the reason for that is because you get that creature bait and it's got all that action and it's just flowing all over. I like to use chunks on these, especially in the wintertime. Now in the summertime, I'll be pitching these fast. You want to let this sit. You want to let it sit there. You need to be patient with it, because what this is going to do is it's going to sit on the water like this. There we go. And all this is going to be flowing, and that you're going to have that chunk on here, and it'll all be flowing around and all that nice stuff. And these bass, they're not wanting to chase after this food. They're wanting it. You need to fish it like in that deep on the bottom, around structure, cover, docks, things like that. And in it, you need to throw it in the structure. I know that the biggest thing with these, see if I can get this real close, is this. this barb right here, I always spread this out in a V, because it'll look like this, and you may think that'll scare the fish away, but really what that's doing is it's keeping the hook from getting snagged, but I don't have to set the hook as hard, and you lose fish that way. You may not realize it, but you do. You will lose fish that way. So I like to spread those out kind of like that, and I like to trim them just to where they're at the, maybe if I can, just to where they're at the hook, just kind of past the hook. So number 2 is definitely a football jig. This isn't a football shape, but this is a 3/8 ounce football jig style. This is the 3/8 ounce jig. I fish it like a football jig just because it's so heavy, but either this or this color is an actual football jig. Phenomenal bait to throw when it is cold outside. The next one that I have, probably on a lot of your guys' decks, is this crankbait. This is a crawl style. This is a Duke's Bait custom. I made this myself. So if you don't have one that looks exactly like this, that's okay. You can't. It's impossible. Sorry. But it's loud. Now, if you're fishing super pressured water, you may downgrade to maybe a smaller noise level of a crankbait. Now, this is your bonus snip bit for a bait, because this is becoming a staple across the nation right now, for a while actually. And this is a flat-sided Bomber Flat A. This is a wooden bait with a very, very low knock sound. Doesn't make a lot of noise. That's it. That's all the noise it makes. And if it's pressured and you're throwing this crankbait and you are just hammering it, pick up the flat-sided crankbait. The wooden baits, there's a reason they started with wood. They work, and it's insane to see the difference on those pressured fish, because when they won't eat this loud knock bait, for some reason that flat-sided wooden bait with a low knock will, 9 times out of 10, they'll take it. It catches fish, especially in pressured waters. Now, I fish Lake Shelbyville on the MLF circuit for Illinois, and I got to tell you guys, it sucks. It is hard to get a good bag on Shelbyville. It's hard to get a good bag on Wren Lake. It's hard to get a good bag, period. This Bomber crankbait has saved me more times than I'd like to admit. And the jigs do as well. But this Bomber crankbait, I've ripped crankbaits for hours on practice days and on tournament days, because you're just trying to cover as much water as you can. But when I haven't had any luck with, like a loud knocked crankbait, or even, maybe not even specifically this one, but maybe like a 1.5 or a 2.5 square bill, and I'm ripping it through in a crawfish pattern. Maybe it's a Ozarks craw or a Georgia craw or something like that, and I can't get anything to bite. Maybe a hit every 15, 30 casts, in a broad scheme. When I pull this out, it's 2 or 3 casts, and I get a hit, and usually it's a hookup rate guaranteed with how they hit that bait, because they hit it so aggressively, and I love it. It's one of my favorite lures to throw since I found it. This specific one has never touched the water. I lose them all the time because I throw them a lot. So they are pretty expensive. They're $8 to $11 depending on where you get them, but it's well worth the money. I mean, you can't buy a better bait. So that was probably the longest winded one I have. I'm sorry. I love that lure so much. The next one that I have, and these are both Duke's Bait Co. customs. I make these, but it doesn't matter. They all work. Specifically, let's see here, the best way. Rattle traps. The rattle baits, rattle traps, lipless cranks, whatever you want to call them. Yikes. Sorry about that. When I fish this lure, I'm going to fish it in the wintertime especially. This is more for a northern bait, but you can use them across the board. When I fish this lure, I'm going to fish it in a yo-yo style. So what that is, if you don't know what that is when you tie this on, you're going to let it sink all the way to the bottom. It's going to sit like this, and it's going to rattle all the way down to the bottom. And then when you pull it up, you're not going to yank it up, but you're going to pull it up, and and then you're going to reel that tension back down, and it's going to hit the bottom again, and then you're going to follow it back up. And this is back to what I was saying with these bait fish. They're dying in February, even into March sometimes. So it imitates a dying bait fish, and it catches fish. I mean, it's just a proven tactic. I know when I first heard about this, Mike Iaconelli was talking about it a couple years ago, and I was watching a video about him. And everything I just said is in that video, 100%. Maybe I've said it a little different, I don't really know, but that has been engraved in my brain since I watched it. Because I had these in my tackle box for years, and I just never used them. But they work, especially in these cold months. They really do work in the cold months. And it's an unpopular opinion, but I love them. I've painted lots of them. I customized lots of them too. And they work. They work wonders. I mean, it's one of those tough fishing day baits. So we got one more, and I really like this lure. I'm gonna put these away. The best of both worlds right here. This bladed jig. Not specifically this color. You can use any color. I mean, you can use blue, white, any of them. The bladed jigs, they just work. It is a mix between a jig and a crankbait, or a spinnerbait and a crankbait, because when you throw this is kind of like your blade for a crankbait, but it's shiny, and you can fish this thing like you can cover so much water. I mean, you can fish it in grass, you can fish it in hydrillas, you can fish it in anything. And what I love to do is fish this in the wintertime, especially around February, and you can pull this thing, you can just yank it through the grass. But you can fish it really slow through that grass. And it imitates a fish, going through there. And I can't talk this bait up enough. This is one of the lures that I started bass fishing with years ago. And it's a staple for me. It's another one of those baits that, especially in the fall and in the early spring, this bait is a killer bait, and it's a confidence bait for me. And it's one of those things that it's one of those things you just got to throw it, and it might take a minute, it might take an hour, it might take 2 hours, it might take all day. But when you find the fish with those, I have seen personally, maybe you haven't, in my experience, if I can catch a good fish on that spinnerbait, there's 2 or 3 more around the area, and I love throwing them. And unfortunately, last year I really didn't throw them as much as I probably should have. But whenever I did, it was always a staple. Tournament fishing, not tournament fishing, it's a great bait all around. I caught my PB on that specific one. Great bait. So that is all I have for the month of February. I do think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that's 5. I have the 5. And then this Bomber Flat A was your secret 6. So I hope you enjoyed that. If that was all you came here for and you haven't been following the channel, feel free to stick around. But we are going to move over now into discussions of the tournament series in this next short clip. So we're going to pause this and then we'll be back. What is going on, you guys? Thomas Duke Fishing here. Very quickly, I just wanted to go over the tournament schedule this year. We are changing a couple of things this year. So first things first, co-anglers are 3 bass limit now, not 5. I'm not really sure how I feel about this yet. Sometimes those 5 bass bags really help you. Sometimes I have a feeling that this 3 bass bag will really help. I know that other tournaments have done it, but the Illinois division is now moving to that 3 bass bag, and I think it's across the board now. So no matter where you fish in the MLF, it's it is 3 bass bag now for the co-anglers. Just co-anglers, boaters are still 5. So for me, it's 3 bass. We have 5 tournaments this year in the Illini division. We have a Wren Lake, Shelbyville again. Unfortunately, that lake is absolutely terrible. And then back to Wren Lake. And then for our super tournament this year, which is in September, I think it's I can pull it up. Hold on just a second. Should have had this done beforehand. Sorry, guys. Should have done this before. Here we go. We're going to run back over that real quick. Wren Lake is April 12th. So we're starting off a little bit earlier this year. We have no tournaments in August. May 3rd is back at Shelbyville. June 21st, we're fishing another Shelbyville back-to-back, which Shelbyville is super pressured. It's going to be a super tough tournament, I have a feeling. And then Wren Lake, back to Whittington, Illinois. We're going on July 19th. And then the Kentucky Lake Super Tournament is the Kentucky Barley Lake in Gilbertsville, Kentucky. And that's going to be September 6th and 7th. You can check all these online through the MLF app, which you can just look up, MLF, MajorLeagueFishing.com, to see all that in real time for the weigh-ins. The news for this year, there have been some circumstances that have come up in my personal life that would hinder me from fishing the regionals tournament in Illinois. So I made the decision to also fish the Hoosier division, which is Indiana, as well as the Illinois tournaments. The reason for just not fishing Indiana is I have sponsors that I've made the commitments to, and I'm not going to leave them out to dry. So April 12th is the first Hoosier Division tournament, which I will not be participating in due to the same day Illinois tournaments. Birdseye, Indiana at Lake Patoka is on May 10th. Quick turnaround from the Illinois division. And then the Ohio River Rocky Point is on the June 7th. And then we have another tournament in June on Lake Monroe. Again, nothing in August on the Indiana side. And then September 20th and 21st will come back for Ohio River and Tanner's Creek in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. And the regionals for that is in, let's see here. I think it's the Kentucky Barley Lake. Yeah. The regionals tournament, which would be the top 45 co-anglers and top 45 boaters, that will be on the, sorry, I lost it. I hadn't lost it. Kentucky Barley Lake and Paris, Tennessee, October 10th and 11th, which I have a feeling this year is going to be awesome. I'm super excited for all the year has to offer. I know we have some little tournaments that we're going to be doing through Fishing Chaos. I know Ben Milliken has his, I don't want to butcher it, so I'm not going to try to say it. I think I know what it is, but I don't know 100%. He's got his tournament series that's going to be starting every month. And there's a big tournament in December down in Texas that he's offering for all the winners. I'm super stoked about that. We're going to be in all of them if we can. And it's an online tournament. So you submit your fish, you get 1 day, biggest bass, and then 5 biggest fish. So I'm super excited about that. Looking forward to some awesome video opportunities there. And I got to tell you guys, I made a switch. This is the last thing that I got, and I'm super excited. It's right here. If you guys haven't heard of, go check out. This is not a sponsored video. They're not sponsoring me. I wish they were. I absolutely love their line. K9 Fishing. Okay? You can look them up at k9fishing.com. This line, well, I just spooled up this rod. Where's it at? I just spooled up this rod. And this line has absolutely no memory at all. And some of you are probably like, yeah, no duh, it's not alive. What I mean by that is normally when you pull line off a spool, it looks like this. It's all swirly and tangled. This line is straight. It comes off the spool straight, even after sitting like this. And it's super strong. I love it. I've been using it for about a month now, and I haven't had any issues with it. One of my sponsors gave it to me to try out, and she was like, this is new stuff there. Everybody's saying it's great. Try it out. And I love it. So I appreciate you guys tuning in to today's video. I'm super excited for what the year has to offer. And as always, God bless. Hope you guys have a wonderful week. And if you haven't seen the February bass fishing video, go check it out. We got some good snippets of information in there and a secret lure that I love to use when the bass are pressured, when they're not biting, they're almost lethargic. So check it out. Have a great day, guys. And we'll see you in the next one.